We treat them like terrible, awful people. We shouldn't do that. People are realizing that, hey, it's wrong to treat people like shit. And that's a thing. And you make it seem like it's an awful thing and how it's all terrible and, we should, stop preaching all this love and start preaching all this fire and brimstone, and if you don't do this, you're gonna go to hell, and scare tactics. And people are realizing, hey, this is all bullshit. It's all scare tactic. It's all terrible. And people are opening their eyes to it and going, well, let's look at the scientific portion of it. And people are talking about that, and that's awesome. That's awesome. Continue.
Today, because we don't preach the gospel. We just preach a self-help motivational message, and we think that people are going to get changed. Well, I don't need my own help.
Well, you do preach a self-help sort of thing where it's people need to change, and here's how you can do it through God and everything like that. And look, if you want to go with that, that's fine. You're not forcing me to do anything like that. But the second you start interfering in other people's lives, the second you start telling them, hey, what you're doing is wrong, and I believe it's wrong, so therefore you should stop doing it, is stupid. You're interfering in other people's lives just so that you can get your way. You're crying like a little baby that someone stole your toy, or someone, not even that, someone just did something you didn't like, I don't know, someone threw sand at you, and you're, crying about it. It's one thing to tell them, hey, stop, and if they don't, well, go to the teacher or whatever, I guess go to God and pray for them. If that's your route, that's fine, whatever. But don't just be an asshole about it. They're not doing much to you. It's not even like the kid in the sandbox analogy, because they're not doing anything to you. It's like the kid stood there and you just told him to go away, and he's like, nah. And you're just being an asshole to him. And that's awful. Don't be an asshole to people. I hate that.
I need the help of Jesus Christ. And for all the people that are saying, well, people are just born that way. Here's what the Bible says: you must be born again. We're all born into sin nature. Yet they still have never found a gene.
Well, first of all, Josh, you clearly know nothing about genetics or science when you start talking about, well, they've never found a gene for this. They really don't need to find a gene for this. You want to know why? Because there's certain other factors that deal with how your brain chemistry will work. And one of the biggest things they were talking about is a lot of hormones in the womb. That was a big one. Testosterone and estrogen in the womb, it could affect your life later. For instance, if you've ever looked at your fingers, males generally have a longer fourth finger than they do a pointer finger. And now, if you look at and you take that ratio of males, generally, gay males have a longer pointer finger than they do a longer fourth finger, a ring finger, if you will. And that's something interesting, because that shows, mostly, that finger development is because of estrogen and testosterone in the womb, which is very interesting, which shows that there could be outside influences, that make people gay. And that's really quite interesting, gay and transsexual, things like that. And that's interesting. That proves that you don't know anything about this science, and we haven't even scratched the surface about that. And the fact that I know that and you don't, I'm in high school. I should know shit. I should be a fucking dumbass, and yet I know more than this than you. Give me a break. It's fucking stupid. This shit.
That makes you homosexual. Why? Because it's a spiritual condition.
But there's no proof of that either. A lot of people who are homosexual are non-religious or atheists because of people like you. So, unless all people who are homosexual, if it was spiritual, more than likely there would all be one religion. And atheism, by the way, is not really a religion. It's more of an ideology sort of thing. You can argue that with people, but it's not really much of a religion since there's no deity. There's no way to be an atheist. There's completely different atheists out there, and there's totally different people out there. And that's one of the big things I like about atheist communities, that you don't really have to belong to anything. You don't have to join Atheism Plus or anything like that. You just have to be you and believe what you will. And people will accept you for that. And that's what's so awesome about it. Is that I can be me, and people will accept me.
Look, Jesus doesn't hate homosexuals. He loves them, and he loves them enough to save them out of their lifestyle.
Same thing about hate the sinner, hate the sin, not the sinner, sort of thing. And it's just kind of, it's a weak excuse for you to be an asshole to people again. It's just a weak excuse for you to be an asshole. And why would you do that? You know, at least man up and say, I don't like these people. And God doesn't like these people and all that stuff. But don't say that you love them. You don't love them. You clearly don't. You don't love them. And don't lie and say that you do. And also, I don't know if I said this before, but the homosexual lifestyle, you know, that's really insulting to a person because not all homosexuals live in the same way. It's not like they all have like a cult that they follow. Again, it's not a spiritual thing. They all do their own thing. They all love who they love and do whatever they want, sort of thing. And that's great. But you act like it's like a lifestyle. Like the second you become a homosexual, you become a pedophile. You're a rapist. You're a horrible person. You go to brothels. You just suck so many dicks that you live off semen, sort of thing. And it's stupid. It's just so stupid to assume that's just insulting to someone who is a homosexual.
And bring them to the place and the foot of the cross where they can find salvation in him. So I'm tired of all of these people saying, don't judge people, don't judge, stop judging. Who's judging?
You are judging, because let's look at this. Judging is basically defined as saying whether something's right and wrong. And you're basically sitting here saying homosexuality is wrong, and therefore you are wrong and you should change your lifestyle. It's the same way I judge whether there's an apple and whether I should eat it or not, whether it's pristine, it's been washed, it looks good, or it's all bruised up and there's worms all in it. That's the same way you judge people, which is a really stupid way to judge people, by the way. It just basically puts it in a dichotomy, which it doesn't really exist. There's more than one really way to be gay, quote unquote sort of thing, and there's more than one way to go about it. But you just assume that there isn't. So, and you just judge it as all bad, even though you haven't really experienced any of it, and it just shows a lack of perspective that you don't know what you're talking about.
We're just speaking the truth in love, and guess what?
Yeah, but you didn't speak the truth in love. You're insulting people. You're calling them pussies. You've called someone a pussy in this video, and then say, "Oh, but I'm speaking in love." You're not. You're not. You're saying that they're not men. They're not manly enough. Fuck you. You're obviously not speaking in love. You're hateful. That speech is hateful. It's not good to call people things like that. And look, you can talk about. I'm all for you that I don't like hate speech laws and stuff like that. But if you say things like that, I can still call you out for being an asshole. That's my freedom of speech. That's your freedom of speech. That's how it works. I can still call you out. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm calling you out. I'm basically saying, look, that's hateful. And you're saying that you love people and you're all loving, but you clearly aren't. That's why you're so worked up in all these videos. You're not loving.
I'm doing it because you don't have enough hair on your chest to do it. Maybe I'm not talking to you. Maybe I'm just asking that right now you have enough hair on your chest to spread the real message, the truth in love. Just take a moment. If you agree with me, would you just click share on the side of the bottom of this video? Look, there's people that are heading to hell and it.
Look, you believe people are heading to hell. But let's say, for whatever reason, let's say I'm a pagan. And I'm like, look, Josh, your Christian ways, they're not doing so well. You know, you should really start making sacrifices to Hades. Because Hades, when you go down to his realm, when you go down to Hades' realms, you're not going to end up in the golden fields, or even in, like, the fields of... Oh, God, I forget what it's called. But I know there's the 3 places where it's the torment, and then, like, the nothingness where no one remembers anything, and then there's, like, the golden citadels. It's basically like heaven, purgatory, hell sort of thing, which basically proves that Christianity stole that from, not really Greek mythology, but there is a bunch of different mythologies that use that, which is interesting to note. There's a bunch of similar ideologies between all these religions. But something like that, you know, and if I want to walk in and you say like that, you said, I'm crazy, I'm not telling the truth. But if I believed it was the truth, it'd be just as valid as what you're saying right now. Which basically means that your point is not valid. That you're just using this as a platform to hate on people and be an asshole. And it's inexcusable. you shouldn't be an asshole like this. You shouldn't go after people and tell them how horrible they are.